The chains that held the old man were made to crush a war beast. They were thick as tree trunks and glowed with a soft blue light. They had been forged to hold creatures that could rip a starship in half with their claws. And yet they held only a tired human, 71 years old, gray hair, bent shoulders, a man who looked like he should be sitting on a porch somewhere, watching the sun go down. His name was Eli Warren. He stood in the center of a great chamber carved from black stone. Above him rose the seats of the Galactic Council, ringed in silver light, filled with the most powerful beings in the known stars. Thousands of eyes looked down at him. Some had 2 eyes. Some had 6. One creature near the top had a face like melted glass, with no eyes at all, only a slow ripple of color that meant it was thinking. And they were laughing. The sound of alien laughter is a strange thing. Some of it hissed. Some of it clicked. Some of it rang like bells being struck underwater. But together it filled the chamber like a rising tide, and it all meant the same thing. They found the human funny. "This," said a voice from the highest seat, "is what they sent us." The speaker was Lord Valor of the Thren. He was tall and pale, with skin like polished bone, and long fingers that tapped the arm of his throne. His people had ruled 1,000 worlds. His voice carried without effort, calm and cold, the voice of someone who had never once been told no. "Not sent," Eli said quietly. "Taken. Your ships took me. There's a difference." The laughter died down a little, not because they respected him, because they were surprised he spoke at all. "You speak our trade tongue," Valor said. "How quaint. A pet that learned a few words." "I had time to learn," Eli said. "You kept me in that cell for 140 days. And in all that time," Valor said, leaning forward, "your people did not come for you. No fleet. No demand. No message. Do you understand what that tells this console, human?" Eli said nothing. "It tells us," Valor said, "that you do not matter. Not to us. Not even to your own kind. You are a small thing from a small world at the edge of nothing. And you have wasted enough of our time." The old man lifted his head. His eyes were pale gray, like a winter sky, and they were steady. "You brought me all this way," Eli said, "just to tell me I don't matter?" "We brought you," Valor said, "to answer for a crime." That word landed heavy in the room. "Crime." Eli blinked. "What crime?" Valor smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Your species destroyed a Thren scout vessel. 40 of my people died. And you, human, were the commander who gave the order." The chamber went silent. Eli Warren stood there in his chains, and for a long moment he did not speak. Then he laughed. It was small and tired, but it was real. "You've got the wrong man," he said. "I'm not a soldier. I never was. I'm a gardener." More laughter now, sharper than before. "A gardener," Valor repeated, tasting the word like something rotten. "That's right," Eli said. "I grow things. Food. Flowers. I keep gardens alive on a station where nothing should grow at all. That's my whole life. That's who you dragged across the galaxy in chains." "You lie," Valor said. "I don't," Eli said. "But you're going to believe what you want to believe. Powerful people always do." Valor's fingers stopped tapping. "Then let me be clear with you, Gardener," the Thren Lord said. "This console has already voted. Your species will be marked as a threat. Your worlds will be closed off. Your ships will be turned back at every border. You will be caged, like the small animals you are, until you die out on your own. This is mercy. It is more than you deserve." Eli looked around the great chamber, at the thousands of faces, at the beings who had never seen his home, never met his neighbors, never tasted the tomatoes he grew in the cold dark of deep space. "You keep saying we're small," Eli said. "You keep saying we don't matter. You laugh, and you point, and you make your little jokes." He took a slow breath. "I've spent my whole life being underestimated. It never bothered me. Being small is fine. Being quiet is fine. He paused. But you just told me you're going to cage my whole species. My grandkids. Every child who hasn't even been born yet. You're going to lock them in the dark and wait for them to die. His voice didn't rise. It got quieter. And somehow that was worse. So here's the only thing I'll say to this console, Eli said. You want war? We'll give you war. And when it's over, you'll wish you'd left the gardener alone. For one heartbeat, the chamber was perfectly still. Then Lord Valor laughed. And 10,000 voices laughed with him. They should not have laughed. To understand why, you have to go back. Back before the chains. Back before the console. Back to a small station spinning in the dark, so far from the center of everything that most of the galaxy had never heard its name. The station was called Greenhold. It hung in orbit around a dead moon, in a system with no living worlds, at the very edge of what humans had reached. It was a supply post, nothing more. Ships stopped there to refuel on the long road to nowhere. Humanity had only been in deep space for a few hundred years, and out here at the edge, the outposts were small and poor and easy to forget. But Greenhold had one thing no other station had. It had a garden. Not a small one. A garden that filled 3 full levels of the station, glowing green under warm lamps, thick with fruit and vine and leaf. There were tomatoes and peppers and beans. There were apple trees, short and stubborn, bending under red fruit. There were flowers that had no purpose at all except to be beautiful, and they were. And in the middle of it all worked Eli Warren. He had come to Greenhold 30 years ago as a young man. He had come to run from grief. His wife, Maria, had died back on Earth, and he could not stand to stay where every street reminded him of her. So he took the loneliest job he could find, at the edge of human space, and he told himself he would only stay a few years. He never left, because on that lonely station, Eli discovered something about himself. He could make things grow. It was slow, patient work, and it asked for nothing but care and time, and he had plenty of both. He built the garden one seed at a time. He fixed the lamps when they broke. He carried water. He learned the soil. And year by year, the dead station came alive. People came to Greenhold, and they left changed. A hard traveler would step off a cold ship, walk into that green light, smell living earth for the first time in months, and something in them would soften. Eli would hand them an apple, still warm from the lamps, and watch their eyes fill up. How do you do it? They always asked. Out here? In all this dark. And Eli always said the same thing. You just don't give up on it. That's the whole secret. You just don't give up. He had no children of his own. But over 30 years, the young crews who cycled through Greenhold had become something like family. They called him Old Eli. They came to him with their troubles. He remembered every name. Among them was a young woman named Sarah Coyle. She had arrived at Greenhold as a scared 19-year-old, running from a bad home, with nowhere else to go. Eli had given her a job in the garden, and she had stayed for 6 years. She learned everything he knew. She was smart and stubborn and quick to anger, and Eli loved her like the daughter he never had. Then Sarah left. She joined the human fleet. She wanted to see the galaxy, to make something of herself, to matter. You already matter, Eli had told her the day she left. Not out here, she'd said. Out here, nobody sees anything. I want to be where things happen, Eli. He had hugged her goodbye and pretended he wasn't sad. He gave her a seed to take with her, a single apple seed wrapped in cloth. Plant it somewhere, he'd said. Somewhere it can grow. So you'll remember. That was 4 years before the Thren came. The first sign of trouble was a light in the sky. Eli was up on the observation deck one evening, having his tea, watching the dead moon turn below the station. That was his habit. Every night, tea and the view. He liked the quiet. Then a new star appeared. It grew brighter and brighter, and Eli set down his tea, because stars don't move, and this one was moving. It was a ship. He had seen human ships his whole life, and he knew their shapes. This was not a human ship. It was long and pale and curved like a bone, and it slid through space with a smoothness that made his skin crawl. It was 3 times the size of Greenhold, easily, and it was coming straight for them. The station had only 12 people on it that night. Eli hit the alarm. By the time the crew gathered on the command deck, the pale ship filled the whole viewport. Up close it was even stranger, covered in ridges and grooves like something grown rather than built. "Nobody's answering our hails," said the station's young comms officer, a nervous man named Tomas. "I've tried every channel." "Human ships?" someone asked. "That's not human," Eli said quietly. They all turned to look at him. "First contact," Tomas whispered. "We're making first contact." For a moment, wonder filled the room. Humanity had been in space for centuries and had never met another intelligent species. There had been signs, old ruins on dead worlds, strange signals from far away, but never a face. And now here it was, a ship from the stars, right in front of them. "We should welcome them," said Greenhold Station Chief, a kind old woman named Dr. Anwin. "Open a channel. Tell them we come in peace." Then the pale ship fired. There was no warning. A beam of blinding white light lanced out and struck the station's outer ring. Greenhold shuddered. Alarm screamed. On the far monitor, they watched an entire section of the station go dark and silent as the air rushed out into space. 3 people died in that first shot. 3 people Eli had known for years. "Why?" Tomas kept saying, over and over. "Why? We didn't do anything. Why?" The pale ship did not answer. It fired again. And again. Greenhold was not a warship. It had no shields, no weapons, nothing but its thin metal walls. It came apart like a toy. "Everyone to the escape pods," Dr. Anwin ordered. "Now. Go, go, go." But there weren't enough pods. There were never enough. Greenhold was a small station, and the pods held 8, and there were 9 people left alive. Eli did the math in a single glance. He always was quick with numbers. "Get in," he said, pushing the others toward the pods. "All of you. Go." "Eli, come on." Tomas grabbed his arm. "The pod holds 8, Eli said. "There's 9 of us. You do the math, son." "No," Tomas said. "No, we're not leaving you. You've got a wife back home," Eli said gently. "I don't have anybody waiting on me. Get in the pod, Tomas. Tell them what happened here." The station rocked again. There was no more time. Dr. Anwin looked at Eli with tears in her eyes, and he nodded to her, and she understood, and she got the others into the pod. "Go grow something beautiful, Eli," she whispered as the door sealed. The pod shot away into the dark, streaking toward the nearest human relay a day's journey away. And Eli Warren stood alone on his dying station. He walked back to the garden. Of course he did. If he was going to die, he wanted to die where it was green. He stepped into the warm light one last time. The lamps were flickering now, and half the plants were already dead from the cold seeping in. But some were still alive. Some still reached for the light. Eli knelt in the soil. He put his hands in the dirt he had tended for 30 years. "I'm sorry," he told the garden. "I couldn't keep you going. I tried." Then the pale ship's beam cut through the ceiling, and the garden filled with light, and everything went dark. He woke up in a cage. They kept him for 140 days. The cell was small and cold and clean, with walls that hummed. His captors, the pale bone-colored aliens, never spoke to him. They fed him a gray paste through a slot. They watched him through a window that was always dark. But Eli was patient. Patience was the only thing he had ever been truly good at. And so he did what he had always done. He watched, and he learned, and he waited. He learned their language by listening. The guards talked past his cell, day after day, and Eli had a good ear and endless time. Slowly, word by word, The sounds began to make sense. He learned they were called the Thren. He learned they ruled a vast empire. He learned they thought of humans as vermin, as a young and worthless species not worth the air they breathed. And he learned one more thing, a thing that made no sense. They kept talking about a battle, a human ship that had destroyed a Thren scout vessel. 40 Thren dead. They spoke of it with cold fury, and they said the human commander who did it would answer for the crime before the whole Galactic Council. They said the commander's name was Warren. Eli Warren pressed his forehead against the cold wall of his cell and tried to understand. He had never commanded a ship. He had never fired a weapon in his life. He was a gardener. There had to be some mistake. But there was no one to ask and no one who would listen. So when they finally dragged him in chains before the Galactic Council and Lord Vaylor accused him of murder, Eli told the truth. He told them he was a gardener. He told them they had the wrong man. And they laughed. And Eli, tired and grieving and alone, said the only thing left in his heart. You want war? We'll give you war. They laughed. But somewhere very far away, something was already moving. For days before the Council met, a small human ship dropped out of jump at the edge of a quiet system. It was a scout ship, fast and lean, and it had been chasing a signal for 3 weeks. Its captain was Sarah Coyle. She was 29 now, hardened by 4 years in the fleet, with short dark hair and a scar on her chin from a fight she'd rather forget. She had made a name for herself as a scout, one of the best. She flew alone into places no one else would go. She found things no one else could find. And 3 weeks ago, she had picked up a distress signal from a place called Greenhold. Her whole body had gone cold when she saw the name. Greenhold, Eli's station, her home, once for 6 years, the place that had saved her life. She had turned her ship around and flown straight for it, breaking a dozen fleet rules along the way. When she arrived, she found nothing but a field of broken metal drifting in the dark. Greenhold was gone, torn apart, frozen and silent. Sarah had floated her ship through the wreckage for a full day, scanning for survivors, finding none. She found the escape pod's flight record, showing that 8 people had made it out. But the pod's manifest also showed who had not made it out. Eli Warren, status, remained aboard. She had sat in her cockpit and cried for the first time in years. Then she found the other thing. Buried in the station's scorched black box, a final scan of the attacking ship. The pale, bone-colored ship. The ship that shouldn't exist, because humanity had never met another intelligent species, and this was clearly built by hands that were not human. First contact. And it had started with murder. Sarah flew back to the nearest fleet base as fast as her ship could go, carrying the proof, carrying the fury, carrying the grief. She thought she would be met with alarm, with mobilization, with justice. Instead, she found silence. The base commander, a stiff man named Admiral Petro, listened to her report with a stone face. He looked at her evidence, and then he told her to say nothing. Nothing, Sarah said. Sir, they killed everyone on that station. They made first contact by murdering civilians. The galaxy has aliens in it, and they attacked us, and you want me to say nothing? I want you to understand the situation, Petro said. He leaned back in his chair. He looked tired in a way she didn't like. We already know about them, Coyle. Sarah stared at him. What? The Thren, Petro said. That's what they call themselves. We've been in quiet contact for 2 years. The room seemed to tilt. 2 years, Sarah repeated. We've known about aliens for 2 years, and nobody told. It's classified above your rank, Petro said. Above mine, honestly. Command has been trying to negotiate a place for us in the galaxy. The Thren run a thing called the Galactic Council. It's like a council of powerful species. They control the jump lanes, the trade, everything. And they don't want us in it. They think we're too young, too small, too dangerous. So they blew up a station full of civilians, Sarah said, and were negotiating? Petro's jaw tightened. There was an incident 3 months ago. A Thren scout ship near one of our colonies. Something went wrong. The scout was destroyed. 40 Thren dead. They blame us. They say a human commander gave the order. Did we? No, Petro said. The scout ship fired first. Our people defended themselves. But the Thren don't care about that. They want a scapegoat. They demanded we hand over the commander responsible. Sarah felt something cold crawl up her spine. And, she said, did we? Petro looked away. Sir, Sarah said, did we hand someone over? They took someone, Petro said quietly. From Greenhold. During the attack. They took a prisoner. They're calling him the commander who destroyed their ship. They're going to put him on trial before the whole council. Sarah's heart was pounding now. Who? Who did they take? Petro pulled up a file. He turned the screen toward her. And Sarah Coyle looked at the face of Eli Warren. His name is Warren, Petro said. Same as the real commander who was at that colony battle. Different Warren. Wrong man. But the Thren don't know that, and Command decided. He stopped. Decided what? Sarah said. Her voice was very flat now. Command decided it was better to let them believe it, Petro said. One old civilian versus a war we can't win. If the Thren think they've got their man, they'll be satisfied. They'll punish him, and then maybe they'll let us into the council. It buys us time. It buys us peace. Sarah stood up slowly. You're going to let them execute an innocent old man, she said, so you can save face with a council that murdered our people. I'm going to prevent a war that would end our species, Petro said sharply. Sit down, Coyle. He raised me, Sarah said. Her voice cracked. That man in the picture. When I had nobody. He gave me a home. He gave me a job. He gave me a seed, sir, an apple seed, and told me to grow it somewhere. I'm sorry, Petro said. And he did look sorry. I truly am. But it's already done. He's already at the council homeworld. There's nothing you or I can do. Sarah stood there a long moment. Then she saluted, sharp and cold. Understood, sir, she said. And she walked out. And she did the exact opposite of everything he'd ordered. The council homeworld was called Thren Prime, and it was the most beautiful and terrible place Sarah had ever seen. She reached it after 9 days of hard illegal flying, hiding in the shadows of freighters, slipping through jump lanes she had no permission to use. Her little scout ship was not made for a place like this. Thren Prime was ringed by 1,000 warships, patrolled by drones, watched by scanners that could see a fly from a moon away. But Sarah Coyle was the best scout in the human fleet, and she had spent her whole life being invisible. She knew how to be small. She knew how to disappear. Eli had taught her that, in a way, all those years ago. Asterisk, the world doesn't see the quiet ones. Use it, asterisk. She got her ship into a graveyard of old satellites in the planet's high orbit, powered down to almost nothing, and hid. Then she did what she was best at. She listened. She tapped into the planet's public broadcasts, the endless streams of council business. And she learned, quickly, that she was almost too late. The trial of the human commander was set for the very next day. And it was not really a trial at all. The verdict was already decided. The old man would be marked a criminal, humanity would be caged, and Eli Warren would be executed before the whole galaxy as a warning. Sarah sat in the dark of her cockpit and made a decision that would change everything. She could not fight the Thren. One ship against 1,000 was suicide. She could not free Eli by force. There were too many walls, too many guards. But she could tell the truth. If she could get her evidence, her proof, the black box scan of the Greenhold attack, in front of the council, in front of the whole galaxy, then everyone would see it. They would see that the Thren had attacked civilians. They would see that Eli was a gardener, not a commander. The lie would fall apart. It was a thin hope, A crazy hope. But Eli had taught her that too. Asterisk, you just don't give up on it. That's the whole secret. You just don't give up. Asterisk. Back in the great black chamber, Eli Warren stood in his chains and waited to die. The laughter had faded. Lord Vaylor rose from his high throne, tall and pale and cold, and the whole console fell silent to hear him. The human has threatened this console, Vaylor said. You all heard it. War, he says, as if his kind could bring war to us. He spread his long fingers. Let this be the answer of the console. There will be no war. There will only be judgment. He turned his colorless eyes on Eli. Eli Warren, for the murder of 40 Thren aboard the scout vessel Silent Reach, you are found guilty. Your species is declared a hazard and will be sealed from the stars. And you, the commander who spilled Thren blood, will pay in kind. Eli looked up at him. I told you, Eli said. You've got the wrong man. I never commanded anything but a garden. So you keep saying, Vaylor replied. It changes nothing. I know it doesn't, Eli said. Not to you. But it's still true. And someday it's going to matter that it's true. Maybe not today, but someday. Vaylor almost smiled. You are a strange creature. You face your end, and you speak of someday. Your someday has run out, human. Then a new voice cut across the chamber. Wait. Every head turned. It came from a delegate seated low in the ring, a member of a species Eli had never seen. It was small, no taller than a child, with soft gray skin and huge dark eyes that took up half its face. It had 4 thin arms, folded neatly. When it stood, the whole console seemed surprised, as if this creature almost never spoke. I am Nuu, the little being said. Its voice was soft and clear. I speak for the Asai, and I have a question for the accused, if the console permits. Vaylor waved a hand, impatient. Ask then. Quickly. The little gray creature named Nuu turned its huge eyes on Eli. You say you are a gardener, Nuu said. You say you grow things. Is this true? It's true, Eli said. Then answer me this, Nuu said. The Thren scout Silent Reach was destroyed near a human colony. A commander gave that order. If you did not give it, if you are only a gardener, then how do you explain that your name is Warren, the very name in the Thren record? The chamber leaned in. Eli was quiet for a moment. It's a common name, he said. Where I'm from, lots of people are named Warren. It's like asking why 2 trees have the same kind of leaf. There's more than one of us. A soft ripple of confusion moved through the alien delegates. The idea that a name could belong to more than one person seemed to genuinely puzzle some of them. Among many of these species, names were unique, sacred, given only once. You suggest, Nuu said slowly, that the Thren captured the wrong Warren. I'm telling you they did, Eli said. Vaylor stood sharply. Enough. This is nonsense. The Asai delegate wastes our time with the babbling of a condemned animal. The verdict stands. But Nuu did not sit down. My Lord Vaylor, the little creature said, and though its voice was soft it did not waver. The Asai have watched the Thren hunger for this human's death for many days. We have wondered why. 40 of your people died at the Silent Reach, yes. But the Asai have lost far more than 40 to Thren expansion, and no one has ever offered us a trial. Why does this small death matter so much to you? The chamber went very still. Vaylor's pale face did not change, but his fingers went tight on the arm of his throne. Because, he said carefully, the humans must learn their place. Must they? Nuu said. Or must the galaxy learn that the Thren punish the young and the small so that the old and the great remember to be afraid? It was the boldest thing anyone had said in that chamber in a long time. Eli watched it land. He saw, for just a moment, uncertainty flicker across 100 alien faces. He saw that not everyone in this room loved the Thren. He saw fear, and under the fear, resentment. And in that moment, Eli Warren, Gardner, understood something. He understood that this whole trial was never about him. It was a show. The Thren were the strongest species in the galaxy, but strength built on fear is a fragile thing. They needed to remind everyone who was in charge. They had picked humanity because humanity was new and weak and alone, and killing a human would frighten everyone else into line. He was not the point. He was the message. Eli stood a little straighter. "You know what?" he said, loud enough for the whole chamber. "The little one's right. This isn't about 40 dead Thren. This is about all of you. You want everybody scared. You want everybody quiet. You picked us because we're new and we don't have any friends." "Silence the human," Valor said. "But here's what you don't understand about people," Eli went on, faster now. "You can scare us. You can hurt us. You can kill us, one at a time, in fancy rooms like this one. But the more you push, the more we push back. That's not a threat. That's just what we are. We don't quit. We are the species that does not quit." "Silence him," Valor thundered. Guards moved toward Eli, and then the whole chamber went dark. Every light in the Galactic Council died at once. The silver rings, the throne glow, the great screens, all of it went black. 10,000 voices cried out in alarm. And then a single new light appeared, high above them all, projected against the dome of the chamber. It was a picture. It was Greenhold. The little station, spinning in the dark, glowing with the green of its garden windows. And then, in the picture, the pale bone-colored Thren ship slid into view. And it fired. And Greenhold came apart. The whole Galactic Council watched, in perfect silence, as a Thren warship destroyed a defenseless human station. They watched the escape pod flee. They watched the station die. And across the bottom of the image ran the words, in the trade tongue, clear for everyone to read. Asterisk the station Greenhold. No weapons. No army. 13 people. 3 dead in the first shot. This is how the Thren made first contact with humanity. Asterisk. And then a voice filled the chamber. A human voice. A young woman's voice, tight with rage and grief. "My name is Sarah Coyle," the voice said. "I found what was left of Greenhold. I have all the records. I have the whole truth. The man you're about to kill isn't a soldier. He's a gardener. His name is Eli Warren, and he raised me when I had no one, and he stayed behind on that station so 8 other people could live. That's who your great Council is putting on trial." Eli stood in the dark, and his eyes filled with tears because he knew that voice. He would have known it anywhere. "Sarah," he whispered. "The Thren told you humans destroyed their scout ship," Sarah's voice continued. "Here's the truth about that too." A new image appeared. Ship logs. Sensor data. The Thren scout fired first. Our people defended themselves. And when the Thren couldn't have their revenge on the ship that fought back, they grabbed the nearest human they could find, an old man from a farm station, and called him a war criminal. Because to them, one human is the same as any other. We're just animals to them. Small things. Not worth the truth. The lights began to flicker back on. Thren technicians were fighting to regain control of the chamber's systems. But it was too late. Every delegate in the Galactic Council had seen. Every species had watched a human station die on the great dome above their heads. Valor was on his feet, and for the first time, his calm was gone. "Lies," he snarled. "Fabrications. This is a human trick. Trace the signal. Find the source." "You won't find me in time," Sarah's voice said. "But it doesn't matter. You've all seen it now. Every one of you. And you can't unsee it." The little gray creature, new, rose again. This time, others rose with it. A delegate covered in blue feathers. A great 4-legged thing with a voice like grinding stone. One by one, all around the chamber, delegates were standing. The Asai, new, said, its soft voice ringing now. Call for the trial to end. The Vosks stand with the Asai, rumbled the four-legged thing. The Aruns stand with the Asai, said the feathered one. Valor stared around the chamber, and Eli watched something happen in the Thren Lord's eyes. He watched him realize that the show had gone wrong, that the message he meant to send had turned into a different message entirely. He had wanted the galaxy to see human weakness. Instead, the galaxy had seen Thren cruelty. And worse, far worse, the galaxy had seen a human refuse to break. This changes nothing, Valor said, but his voice had lost its edge. The verdict stands. The human dies. No, Nu said. If you kill him now, my lord, after all have seen the truth, then you do not send a message of strength. You send a message that the Thren kill the innocent even when caught in the light. Is that the message you wish the galaxy to carry home? The chamber held its breath. And Lord Valor of the Thren, ruler of 1,000 worlds, looked down at one old human gardener in chains, and he understood that he had lost this moment. Not the war, not the empire, just this one moment. But sometimes a single moment is the crack that brings down the wall. Take him back to his cell, Valor said at last, his voice cold and quiet. This console is adjourned. The guards took Eli away, but as they led him out, the old man looked up, one last time, at the great dark dome where the image of his burning home had hung. Thank you, Sarah, he whispered. Now get out of here. Please, get out. Sarah did not get out. She had done what she came to do. She had shown the galaxy the truth. But she had not saved Eli, and she was not leaving without him. So instead of running, she went deeper. The signal she'd hijacked had been traced, just as Valor ordered. But she had planned for that. She had bounced it off a dozen relays and set her scout ship to broadcast on a loop while she was no longer aboard it. By the time Thren drones tore her empty ship apart in orbit, Sarah Coyle was already down on the surface of Thren Prime, hidden in a maintenance duct beneath the console complex, filthy and exhausted and very much alive. She had studied the building for 2 days. She knew where they kept prisoners. It was deep underground, in a black stone vault, behind more security than she could ever break through alone. But she was not alone, because the little gray creature, Nu, had been watching too. And after the trial fell apart, a message reached Sarah through the very same relay she had used, in halting human trade tongue. Asterisk the Asai see you, human. We wish to speak. Do not be afraid. Asterisk. It was a risk. It could be a trap. But Sarah had learned from Eli that sometimes you have to trust, or you have nothing at all. So she answered. And that night, in the dark beneath the console, she met Nu of the Asai face to face. The little creature was even smaller in person, barely reaching Sarah's waist, with those enormous dark eyes that seemed to hold whole oceans of feeling. You are very brave, Nu said softly, or very foolish. Among my people, these are often the same thing. Why are you helping me? Sarah asked. Nu was quiet for a long moment. The Asai were once a great people, it said. We had 1,000 worlds of our own, long ago. Then the Thren came. They did not destroy us all at once. They did it slowly. A world here. A colony there. Always with a reason. Always with a trial. Always making the rest of us watch, so that we would be too afraid to fight. Its huge eyes shimmered. Now the Asai have 3 worlds left. And a seat on the console that means nothing. We are a warning, human. We are what the galaxy becomes when it does not resist the Thren in time. Sarah felt her throat tighten. When I saw your old man in chains, Nu went on, I saw my own people. And when I heard him say he does not quit, the little creature's voice broke. The Asai stopped saying that a long time ago. We forgot how. Perhaps it is not too late to remember. Sarah knelt down so she was eye to eye with the small alien. Then help me get him out, she said. I cannot free him by force, Nu said. The Asai have no soldiers left. But I can do something else. I can open a door. The rescue happened in the dark hours before dawn. Nuu, as a member of the Council, had access to parts of the complex that Sarah could never reach. The little creature could not fight, could not carry a weapon, could not fire a shot, but it could walk through certain doors without being questioned. And it could carry one small thing hidden in its four thin arms, a stolen security key, lifted from a distracted Thrin guard days before, saved for exactly this moment. Nuu went to the prison vault alone. It told the guards it had come to question the human prisoner on behalf of the Council, which was believable because Nuu had defended the human at the trial. The guards were suspicious, but Nuu was a delegate, and delegates were not to be refused lightly, even now. They let it in. And while Nuu spoke to the guards, keeping their eyes on its huge, sad face, Sarah Coyle slipped in behind it through the door Nuu held open, moving low and silent, the way Eli had taught her all those years ago. The world doesn't see the quiet ones. She reached Eli's cell. She used the stolen key. The door slid open, and there he was. Older, thinner, bruised, but alive. Eli Warren looked up from the floor of his cell, and he saw the face of the girl he had raised, and 30 years of loneliness broke open in his chest all at once. "Sarah," he breathed. "Hi, old Eli," she whispered, and her voice cracked completely. "Miss me?" She got him to his feet. He was weak, and she was strong, and she put his arm over her shoulders and held him up. "You shouldn't have come," Eli said. "You shouldn't have. It's too dangerous. You stayed behind on a dying station so 8 strangers could live," Sarah said. "You really think I was going to leave you here?" Eli laughed, even through the tears. "I raised you too well." "You raised me exactly right," Sarah said. "Now come on. We're getting you home." But getting home is never so simple. They made it out of the vault. They made it up through the maintenance ducts. Nuu led them through the dark bones of the Council complex, along paths no human should have known, toward a hidden landing bay where a small Asai vessel waited. But the Thrin were not fools. When a guard found Eli's cell empty, the whole complex woke up. Alarms shrieked through the halls. Red light washed over everything. And drones, small and fast and deadly, filled the corridors, hunting. "Faster," Nuu urged. "The ship is close. We must." A drone rounded the corner ahead of them. Its single red eye locked onto them. It raised a weapon. Nuu threw itself in front of Eli and Sarah. "No!" Sarah shouted. The drone fired, and the little gray creature that had lost 1,000 worlds took the shot meant for the humans. Nuu fell. Sarah fired back with the stolen sidearm she'd carried since the vault, and the drone burst into sparks. But Nuu was down, and the gray skin was scorched, and those huge dark eyes were dimming. Eli dropped to his knees beside the tiny alien. He was a gardener. He knew life when he saw it, and he knew when life was leaving. "Why?" Eli said, his voice breaking. "Why did you do that? You didn't even know us." Nuu looked up at him with those enormous eyes. "Because you did not quit," Nuu whispered. "And I wanted to remember what that felt like before the end." The little creature's 4 thin arms reached up, and it pressed something into Eli's hand. It was small and round and hard. It was a seed. "The Asai were gardeners too." "Once," Nuu breathed. "Long ago, before the wars. We grew forests that touched the sky." Its voice was fading. "Grow it somewhere, gardener. Somewhere it can live." And then the little one that spoke for the Asai was gone. Eli Warren knelt in that red-lit corridor, on the homeworld of the enemy, and he closed the huge dark eyes of a creature he had known for only an hour, and he wept for it, as if he had known it all his life. "Eli," Sarah said gently, pulling at him. "Eli, we have to go? We have to go now, or it dies for nothing." He looked at the seed in his hand. He closed his fist around it. "No," he said quietly. "It doesn't die for nothing. Not this one. Not ever again." He got up, and they ran. They reached the Asai ship. More Asai were waiting aboard, and when they saw that Nu was not with the humans, they understood, and grief filled the little vessel. But they did not blame the humans. They looked at Eli, at the seed clutched in his weathered hand, and something passed between them without words. The ship blasted off Thren Prime into a sky full of Thren warships. It should have been the end. One small Asai vessel could not outrun 1,000 Thren guns. Sarah braced for the shot that would end them all. It never came, because up in orbit, something else was happening. The image of Greenhold burning had spread. Sarah's broadcast had not stayed inside the console chamber. It had leaked out, jumped from relay to relay, spread across the whole galaxy in a single night. Every species with a screen had seen the truth. And more than that, they had seen an old human refuse to kneel, and they had seen a small Asai stand up, and something long buried in the frightened peoples of the galaxy had begun to stir. When the Asai ship fled Thren Prime, it did not flee alone. The feathered Erun sent ships to shield it. The stone-voiced Vosk sent ships. A dozen small, frightened, forgotten species that had spent 100 years bowing to the Thren out of fear looked at what the Thren had done to Greenhold, looked at what one gardener had refused to become, and for the first time in generations, they said no. The Thren guns did not fire, because the Thren suddenly understood that if they fired now, they would not be firing on one small ship. They would be firing on a galaxy that had finally decided it was done being afraid. The Asai ship jumped away into the dark, carrying an old man, a young woman, and a single seed. The war Eli promised did come, but it was not the kind of war Valor expected. The Thren had ruled through fear, and fear is a strange kind of strength. It looks solid until the moment it doesn't. And once the galaxy saw that the Thren could be shamed, could be defied, could be afraid, the whole thing came apart faster than anyone believed possible. Species that had never spoken to each other began to talk. The Asai, the Erun, the Vosk, and dozens more formed a new thing, a real council, one built not on fear but on the memory of what had happened at Greenhold. They called it the Free Concord, and they invited humanity to join not as beggars at the door, but as founders. Because humanity had given them something they'd lost. A story about not quitting. A story about an old man in chains who looked at the most powerful beings in the galaxy and told them the truth even when the truth would cost him his life. There were battles, yes. The Thren did not fall without a fight. Human ships fought alongside Asai and Erun and Vosk, and Sarah Coyle flew in every one of them, and she became something of a legend herself. But the tide had turned the night the galaxy watched Greenhold die and saw a gardener stand tall. Within 3 years, the Galactic Council was gone. The empire of fear that had ruled 1,000 worlds crumbled into memory. Lord Valor of the Thren was never seen in public again. And humanity, the small and young and lonely species from the edge of nothing, had a place among the stars at last. But this is not really a story about war. It never was. It is a story about a gardener. Years later, on a green world at the heart of the Free Concord, there was a garden. It was the largest garden anyone had ever seen. It covered a whole valley, full of things from 100 different worlds, plants that had never grown in the same soil before humanity taught them how. There were earth apples and Vosk moss flowers and Erun singing vines that hummed in the wind. Children of a dozen species played among the rows. And every year, more came, from farther and farther away, just to walk through the green and remember. At the very center of the garden stood a single tree. It was unlike any other. Its bark was silver, and its leaves were the color of deep water, and when the wind moved through it, It made a sound almost like a soft voice speaking. It had grown from a seed pressed into a dying gardener's hand on the darkest night by the smallest and bravest creature he had ever known. The Asai came to that tree from all their worlds. They stood beneath it in silence, and they touched its silver bark, and they remembered Nuu, and they remembered what it felt like to not quit. An old man tended that garden every single day. Eli Warren was very old now. His hands shook a little. His steps were slow. But every morning he walked out into the green, and he pulled the weeds, and he carried the water, and he cared for the silver tree at the center of it all, the way he had cared for everything his whole long life. One evening, near the end of his days, he sat beneath the silver tree with his tea, watching the sun go down over the valley, just as he had once watched a dead moon turn below a lonely station. That was still his habit. Tea, and the view, and the quiet. Sarah came and sat beside him. She was not young anymore either. Her dark hair had gone gray at the edges, and there were new scars and old medals she never wore. She had spent her whole life fighting for the freedom that his one moment of courage had set loose upon the galaxy. But she always came home to the garden. She always came home to him. "They're building a monument, you know," she said, "on the world where the Council used to be. Every species is chipping in. They want to put your name on it." Eli chuckled softly. "What for?" "You know what for," Sarah said. "You started all of it. That day in the chains. You want war, we'll give you war. The whole galaxy knows those words now, Eli. Kids learn them in school. On 100 worlds." Eli was quiet for a while. He looked up at the silver tree, at its deep water leaves whispering in the evening wind. "You know what's funny?" he said. "I didn't mean it as a threat. Everybody thinks I did. I didn't." He smiled a small, tired smile. "When I said we'd give them war, I wasn't talking about ships and guns. I was talking about this." He gestured at the garden, at the children of a dozen worlds playing in the green, at the whole living valley. "This is the war I meant. Not killing them. Outliving them. Outloving them. Making something that doesn't quit." Sarah felt her eyes sting. "You planted the whole galaxy, old Eli," she whispered. "No," he said gently. He reached over and took her hand, her strong, scarred hand, in his old, shaking one. "I planted one seed. In you. A long time ago, on a lonely little station, when you had nobody." He squeezed her hand. "The rest of it, you grew yourselves. All of you. I just didn't give up on it. That's the whole secret. That was always the whole secret." The sun went down over the garden. The singing vines hummed. The silver tree whispered its soft voice into the dark. And the children of many worlds played on in the last golden light, in a valley of green that no one had believed could ever grow, planted by an old man they said was too small to matter. Eli Warren closed his eyes and listened to the sound of everything he had grown. And somewhere in the whisper of the silver tree, if you listened very carefully, you could almost hear the voice of a small, brave creature who had lost 1,000 worlds and found one thing worth dying for. "Grow it somewhere," it seemed to say, "somewhere it can live." And he had. Oh, he had. He had grown it everywhere.